All right. Welcome, everybody, to Behind Enemy Lines. Terry's selfish ass left me here to lose an election while he soaks up the rays in Florida. So, yeah, let's get right into it. Republicans, I'm going to say, as part of the team, got our ass handed to us in the local elections here in Illinois. DuPage County, I think, lost 49 to 49 partisan races. So, yeah, it went pretty terribly. Failure is the best medicine, though. So, I'm not, I don't have any regrets about running the campaign that I ran because I think I was running against an ideology which is radical leftism. And we got plenty of that here in Illinois, and we'll talk about that. One thing I want to say is thank you to all the people who volunteered and helped me out. We raised over $10,000. It was a complete grassroots campaign. Ran it all on my own with the help of many, I ran it with the help of many people, but the decisions on how to run the campaign, particularly from the communication standpoint, were all mine. I went to war against leftists on Facebook and Nextdoor on a daily basis, never with ad hominem attacks or anything like that, just battling them on the issues, and was repeatedly censored. So Nextdoor, in fact, has indefinitely suspended my account. When I was on Nextdoor, I would post an event or something like that, and all of a sudden, the radical Antifa types and the other delusional Democrats as well would attack me unsolicited. So I would defend myself, and I would engage in arguments with them, and yes, civil disobedience, and repeatedly I was kicked off, even though during my campaign I was called a white supremacist, Nazi, racist, homophobe. I was accused of being a Proud Boy, which I'm not. I was accused of being Proud Boy adjacent, stuff like this. But we raised over $10,000. We ran a digital marketing campaign. We sent out 6,000 plus mailers. We ran 3 different text message campaigns. We walked to over 6,000 households, knocking on doors. We touched, thousands and thousands of Republican voters. We got a lot of excitement. I sold out 2 events, had a town hall for a third. An example, I had the other 2 Republicans, and this is what's kind of strange. I came in 5th place out of 6. I had 28-something hundred votes. The guy ahead of me, who I guess is a Republican, Matt Novak. I don't want to put any words in your mouth, Matt. He got like 100-something more than me, 2,900-something. But I think he was appealing to some of those Democrats as well. I ran into the endorsement carousel. Everybody besides me was endorsed. So I told my people that were loyal to me, my voters, just vote me. Just vote me. I had to because the mayor decided to endorse the other 2 candidates and pretend that I didn't exist because I was too controversial because of Behind Enemy Lines. So we did a lot. We worked hard. We touched a lot of voters. Like I said, an example was the first event I had those other 2 guys with me, and I outraised them 20-1. So, we motivated a base that probably hadn't seen a campaign like mine before, that was kind of, smash mouth, in your face opposition to radical leftism that we've got plenty of. The challenges, like I said, I stopped using my Facebook campaign account because it got hacked. I was censored by Facebook. So for anybody who's watching this right now wondering why I haven't posted on Facebook, I have not had my face between my legs. Coincidentally, Facebook decided to completely ban me starting election day morning. and that's supposed to last for 3 days. Not sure what I did. I think it was because I suggested that a candidate from my opinion, supported the sexualization of children because he hasn't spoken out about what's in the library. And I think a bunch of leftists complained to Facebook and got me banned. So I'm not sure because they haven't told me, but Facebook was my outlet. I gained tons of traction by showing them some of the stuff that was in our library and some other stuff. Like I said, next door. Oh, Shaw Local, The Patch, which is a local newspaper. I was just so happened to be the only candidate that they couldn't find contact information for. So I had to reach out to them to get their questionnaire. And then when I did, the editor, Bob Rakow, or however you say his name, who also ran a Facebook group, parents group that had over 21,000 members that originally wouldn't let me in, and then also censored all kinds of posts of mine, asked me if I could back up a claim within my questionnaire. And I said, yeah, you could go to my website and find out that the library director violated Illinois law and did crickets from him, but he eventually posted the questionnaire. So I was challenged from the get-go by social media, banning me all over the place because, my ideas were too dangerous. I ran an extremely contentious campaign. I'll start with some of the things that I exposed because the style of campaign I was running was informational. And I think in the back of my mind, I knew I was, skating uphill because of where we are at in Illinois and the radicalism that's creeped into the suburbs, especially places like Downers Grove and Naperville. But I know that I had gained some attention from this podcast and I had a big following on Facebook. So I thought I was obligated to run a campaign that was informational, that showed people the kind of radical stuff that is going on in our suburbs. Marxist influence that is going on, dangerous stuff, dangerous things to a free society, and particularly our children. So I would run stuff like this. We had, what was it, a year or so ago? Jason, you want to bring up the first image there? So they had tried to have a drag queen bingo event at our library. The town went nuts. They claimed that they canceled it because they got threats. The threats were deemed not credible. And it was more because we packed the village hall and said, no, we don't want this garbage in our library. What possible educational experience can happen for children in a drag queen bingo event? This is all about normalizing and sexualization of children. That's all they're doing. That's all they're doing. And they're claiming that because we oppose stuff like this, we're anti-LGBTQ or some such nonsense. Then, of course, you can go to the next one. They did do this. They had Pride Story Hour for 2-year-olds. Like, again, 2-year-olds. A lot of them can't even talk yet. They can't understand sexuality. Why? Why are we doing this? People were obviously opposed to something like this. Then, yeah. So that wasn't because the drag queen event didn't happen. That didn't happen, but I hear it happened in somewhere. That could have been Downers Grove. See, grassroots. We did a good thing. We got it canceled. So now here's where I started to expose some of the stuff that's in the kids section of our library. I had this wonderful lady Diana Cards come to one of my events, and she brought this book and she showed it to me. And she showed me a printout that showed it was on the shelf in the kids section of the library where my 4 and 2-year-old play regularly. And so if we go to the next page, this kind of opened up a door for me, and I ended up going back to the library. But this book, if you saw the cover there, was targeted at 4 to 8-year-olds. And I'll just read you. And so you have this scene here with the teddy bear on the bed. Kind of creepy, if you ask me. But let me read it to you. Marco is a great guy, Toby thinks. When he grows up, he wants to drive as a nice motor scooter as Marco. Secretly, he imagines himself racing around with Serafina riding on the back. Sabrina and Marco kiss often. All the time, thinks Toby, and they also sleep together. Sabrina told Toby so. They snuggle together for a long time. They kiss each other all over their bodies, behind the ears, on the neck, on the chest and stomach, and even on the bum and between the legs. Sabrina's vagina becomes moist and warm, and Marco's penis gets very stiff. Marco then pushes his penis into Sabrina's vagina, always in and out. That feels great for both of them. When the feeling is nicest, Marco's penis sprays semen into Sabrina's vagina. That's how you get babies, Toby said. So, you know, I put this out on Facebook, and obviously people went ballistic about this because it's in the kids section of our library, and it's targeted, as the cover says, for 4 to 8 year olds. It's insane. That is insane to me. What 4 through 8 year old needs to know the details of a sexual encounter, of sexual interaction? Well, I mean, that you know, Terry and I have been ridiculed. Does he have his poster around here somewhere for genderqueer?
Yeah, I probably took it over.
Yeah, whatever. We had been ridiculed for calling out genderqueer, which showed teenagers engaging in fellatio with a sex object, strap-on sex object. We had been criticized because we said that was inappropriate for children, which of course it's inappropriate for children. These were illustrations. You know, what I just showed you there was a description in writing. Well, that motivated me to go back to the library, and I found a few more books in the very same section that book was in. And so you see this one, How Do You Make a Baby? And as you can see, again, targeted at kids with cartoon images. So here you see 2 naked people, man and woman. I had to cover this up because I put these images out on Facebook, and that was some of the, you know, those images were removed, and those were some of the instances where I got banned for 24 hours, or I couldn't post, or, you know, I couldn't post into groups. I would get these weird restrictions here and there. And many of the restrictions were because I posted a book that's supposed to be for children. So I had to read out some of the stuff to try to put it back on Facebook. And even when I covered it up, because, you know, again, man and woman there, even when I posted this stuff with censorship, they still removed the photos and restricted me again. And then, of course, the next picture, most egregious, you see down there in the right, that picture there shows the insertion. If this isn't cartoon pornography, you know, then I guess we have different definitions of pornography. We go to the next one. Was I in my mom's stomach too? This one's creepy because you go to the next picture in that one. And so you have the dynamic is a daughter with the mother and father kissing. You go to the very next page, and it shows mom and dad in the sex act. And again, in the area of the library where there are 4 to 8 year olds that are being targeted to read these books, when both consent, adults like to touch each other in the places where they are different, explained Dad. The man likes to caress the woman's breasts and vagina. The woman strokes the man's penis. The penis becomes big and very stiff. Then the man pushes his penis into the woman's vagina and keeps moving it in and out. It's a nice feeling. The most beautiful part happens when the man's semen flows into the woman's vagina. Afterward, the two are mostly tired and they snuggle together and fall asleep. I mean, I put this stuff out on Facebook, and they went crazy. People went crazy about this. Just comments all over the place. And you know what? The leftists supported it. They called me a book banner, right? Total nonsense. Like, it's not banning books. if the taxpayer who funds the public institution doesn't want this available to children. Furthermore, doesn't want their tax dollars going to it. Because, newsflash, the government doesn't exercise your free speech for you. And I don't have the ability to censor this publisher or Amazon or Barnes & Noble. You can go buy this garbage on the free market. I cannot stop you from doing that and would never try to. Go ahead. Go ahead. You know, teach your kids this stuff at 4 to 8 years old. I think it's gross and depraved, and I think anybody that supports this being available to children is gross and depraved. But don't tell me that my tax dollars have to go to kiddie grooming like this, which is what this is. And I just think that if I had to do it all over again, I would absolutely expose this, even if I knew, there was no shot at me winning. And maybe I even realized that at the time. But I am against this. I think it's wrong. And I don't see why all taxpayers are forced to subsidize this depravity. It's nonsense. And the argument that this is First Amendment protected is completely specious because the government doesn't exercise the First Amendment. Your rights are for citizens. The government is supposed to protect those rights from being infringed. The government doesn't exercise those rights on your behalf. When the government does it, it's called propagandizing. That's what it's called. Because there's a great portion of society that does not support this. And when they petition their government for redress of grievances, they're saying they don't want this. And when the government does it anyway, they are propagandizing. And they are contributing to the grooming and sexualization of children. So, some other issues that I pointed out. If you bring up the next picture, we had our second pedophile teacher / coach in Downers Grove High School in 3 years. On the next picture, that was a good one. Half for teacher, yeah, of course. I mean, I get the 15-year-old. It'd be tough to turn her down. The next one, we have our park district, who is designating free speech zones within our parks, violating our First Amendment right. And again, if you go to the next picture, you'll see there's the sign. I've seen it in the park. Laura Hoyce, good friend of the program, was running for office, and she was trying to speak to people at the park one day during her political campaign, and a park district employee relegated her to one of these free speech zones. And I had leftists actually argue with me about this and say, oh, case law, case law, case law. Okay. But do you think that somebody goes into a park and thinks to themselves when they want to exercise their free speech, like, say, protest, that, well, we have to check case law first? No, they think this is a public space. I pay for it with my tax dollars. I have the right to freedom of speech. I'm going to exercise that. What is the act that's happening if somebody relegates you to the square? It's an infringement on your right to free speech. Whether you cite case law or not, what are you actually doing? You're engaging in infringing somebody's right and relegating them to a square. We have to understand what our rights are. When the government violates them, they are infringing on those rights that they are supposed to protect. So not only are they infringing on your rights, they're going against their purpose by putting those rights into the Constitution, the founders were saying that you shall be protected from other citizens to exercise these rights, but the government as well. That's what makes us different, special, and stand out in recorded history. All right, so now back to the books. Here's our friend Ann Stava Murray. This is somebody, a radical Marxist representative in Illinois who endorsed a couple of these candidates that I ran against. And if you go to the next pick, so this is what they call the book ban bill, but what is really the kid grooming bill, because that's how they're using it with those pornographic cartoon books in the kids section of the library. It is further declared to be the policy of the state to encourage and protect the freedom of public libraries and library systems to acquire materials without external limitation, and to be protected against attempts to ban, remove, or otherwise restrict access to material. And then the next picture, who has the authority? The state librarian and the Illinois State Library staff shall administer the provisions of this act and shall prescribe such rules and regulations that are necessary to carry the provisions of this act into effect. So, okay, what did that just say? Let's go to the last one. State grants book banning. In order to be eligible for state grants, a public library or library system shall develop a written policy prohibiting the practice of banning books within the public library system. So what did that say? That says the library has the license to propagandize. That's what it said. Because the library or the librarian or the bureaucrat who enacts this is protected against citizens saying we don't want these books in our library, which in my read is a violation of the First Amendment right, because it nullifies our ability to petition our government for redress of grievances. So that's what it is. It's a propaganda bill. It's not a book banning bill. It's about giving the bureaucrat the authority to propagandize without the citizen getting in the way. So it's a kid grooming bill, because that's how the Downers Grove Library seems to be using it, in my opinion. I'm not accusing them of actually grooming children for sex. What I'm saying is they're using propaganda, which can be grooming, because they're normalizing sex for 4 to 8-year-olds as a psychological practice, or they're trying to. I think that's gross, and I think it's depraved. So this woman put forth this bill. This is the type of radical individual that endorsed a couple of the people that I was running against. I'm not going to read this, but essentially this bill would criminalize parents that would deny their children gender-affirming care. So social workers or counselors at schools could indoctrinate your kids with gender or transgender ideology and make them think that they should be another gender. It happened in Florida to a kid. And Ann Stava Murray would have you criminalized for trying to get in the way of that process. That is how radical our politicians in Illinois have become. Now, this bill didn't pass because people went absolutely insane about it, but that is the type of person that endorsed two of the people that got elected to Downers Grove Village Council. So obviously they align with her views. That's where we are right now. Those are the type of people representing us in Downers Grove. In what used to be a family-oriented community, it is now a community where the representatives support a library that would introduce cartoon porn into the kids section of the library, that are supported by somebody that would try to criminalize parents denying their kids gender-affirming care. That's what we live in. So I'm not going to pull up the rest of these. We're going to bring on a former congressional candidate, Rob Cruz, in a couple minutes here. But the reason that I raise these issues and the reason that I ran the campaign that I did, knowing that I was in deep blue Downers Grove, is why Terry and I decided to start this podcast, which is to say that there's a real serious problem here with Illinois, and it comes from the legislation. We have Marxist legislation that is eroding our civil rights. I mean, there's a climate change education bill that got passed. So it's, the government is now dictating what your kids should be learning in school. We had non-citizens become police is an actual law in Illinois. We have real estate transactions cannot be discriminated on the basis of immigration status. That's a bill. It'll be a human rights violation. So that went back to the work that Terry and I did on the illegals, right? So they're trying to set up all these illegals to be citizens and to vote. They're doing different things. Illegals can get real IDs and driver's license. So they're indistinguishable from our IDs and driver's license. This is another bill, right? And so, Jason, I do want to pull up one more image real quick. It's the pie chart there. Just real quick. So this is the danger, folks. This is the danger. They're creating legislation that violates your civil rights. And Jed Davis of the Freedom Caucus in Illinois pointed out this alarming stat here. Deadline week recap, 643 bills advanced. 579, 90% sponsored by Democrats, 64, 10% sponsored by Republicans. So if I just listed some of them, the craziest bills that you can think of, well, there's 579 more in the pipeline from Democrats. And by the way, 600 some odd bills. This is the problem of this country. We're legislating our rights away. What do we need that many bills for? Anyway, so all that being said, I want to welcome Rob Cruz onto the program.
Hey,
Rob, how's it going, man?
good, Paul. How are you doing?
Good. There he is. Oh, you got the wrong name on there, Jace. There we go. He'll fix it. So, Rob, I don't know if you heard me earlier, but DuPage County had a bit of a blue wave, and pretty devastating. I think 49 out of 49 partisan races were lost. And I know that we had heard that JB had dumped tons of money into the local elections, but I mean, my God, this was a whitewashing. I'm wondering your first impressions. What do you think this says about, is there even an Illinois GOP, Rob? Do we have one?
Well, for starters, I went and looked at just the last three locals, right?
Yeah.
What did the numbers look like? How many people are voting? So in 2021, there was 629,000 voters. There was no early voter mail-ins at the time. 104,259 cast their ballots in those elections, 16%. Then 2023 comes. We have 80,000 vote by mails, totaling 124,000 people voting, but only 610,000 registered voters. So DuPage actually lost 19,000 voters between 21 and 23. And in 25, they get those voters back, so it goes back up to 626. We increased the turnout to 22% for 138,322 voters. It looks like to me on the surface that the Democrats harvested, voted
Sure.
by mail, increased the number every single time because the turnouts kept going up from 16, 20 to 22.
Mm-hmm.
And here's a question for you guys. How many voters did the county party register in those three cycles? Does anybody know the answer to that?
No, I have no idea. I mean, that's something that we definitely have a team that's trying to look into that. But I mean, I know there's some inconsistency in the numbers. You know, I mean, oh, hey, maybe Maybe DuPage is experienced the Cook Countification of DuPage County. That very well could be. But it seems to me, Rob, that J.B. Pritzker has taken on the form of Mike Madigan, on steroids, because he has all that money. But, it's not looking too good right now.
Well, Pritzker had that money 10 years ago,
right?
Didn't he?
Yeah.
15 years ago?
Yeah. Yeah.
But
now he's a politician.
Let me ask you this question. And I didn't follow the DuPage as closely as I had followed the ones down here in the Southwest Cook. But I did come across ads, and even local people were talking about, and the Democrat side were talking about abortion. But did that come up in any of the ads? Did people talk about that?
Not that I saw.
Okay. When I was looking on Facebook,
you're talking about the Democrats were talking about abortion. My God, they just don't. They can't leave that alone, right? I don't think I heard any Republicans say a word about abortion.
So here's my theory on this. It's a trigger word.
Yeah,
it gets people up off the couch and you go to vote.
Right.
Our trigger word is immigration.
Well,
did we talk about that at all in these countywide races?
I had the mayor in our town indirectly attack me because Terry and I broke a story last year when you remember when the buses were coming to the suburbs because Johnson had impounded them, and we had broke a story because we saw that there were some towns around us creating ordinances to keep them out. And I made public comment at the time. I said, this isn't about politics. This is about safety. You don't know who these people are. You don't know what their background is. You don't know if they're criminals. You don't know. And you don't have a police presence there to at least ensure that they're all getting on the trains. And he said they were. And then Terry and I videotaped guys getting into a Toyota Florida license plate. So I made public comment and said so. And then, and we'll be breaking this, but I ran across a constituent who told me about a illegal robbing his FedEx or a UPS driver at his doorstep. And so we ran it down and we were like, okay, we couldn't find it. And it turned out it wasn't illegal that moved from New York to here. And, that was my point. And that came up a little bit in ours, but I didn't see much other than that. As a village council member in Downers Grove, I certainly was going to ban abortion if I could. That was something I had the power to do.
My point bringing that up is that it got us off the couch during President Trump's election year. I was just reading here before you guys put me in. We had 2.1 million early votes, and we accounted for almost 40% of it. Like, think about that. Republicans voting by mail and voting early, 40% of 2.1 million.
Right.
And the only thing that really changed was immigration status, is how we've been impacted by immigration here, because crime hasn't changed.
Right.
Cost of living hasn't changed. Abortion hasn't changed. Climate change hasn't changed. It's only immigration. And that issue got us off the couch.
Yeah.
Because Charlie Kirk said, we've become low propensity party because we're the party of the working class.
That's a great point. So I just heard somebody the other day say that the Democrats nailed the vote by mail and the early voting because in their calculus, they were the low propensity voter. But what I hear you saying is same thing for Republicans.
We've become the party of working class people.
Yeah.
Right. How many working class people now have changed their tunes?
Oh, 100%. That's what I mean. Trump's party is the populist working class party.
Correct.
I mean, his whole point, even RFK had said this about how, the Democrats abandoned the working class. They became the party of high finance, big tech, big money. And they abandoned the core. And that was what Trump's first campaign was about, was the Rust Belt, the middle of the country, the flyover states. And that's so, Rob, that's going to be, they've inverted, right, in that sense, the parties. But that's going to be the truth for a generation to come, because it was for, how long were the Democrats a working class party? couple
the 90s,
generations. Yeah.
us growing up as kids. I mean,
Right.
it was Bill Clinton was the
Mhm.
coolest guy on the planet. You know, and he kind of was at the time. I mean, we didn't know all this other stuff about him.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
we didn't know all these other things about him, but he got on TV and basically said, "I'm like you."
He was a smooth
And
talker.
and so like you had a good point there, how we've inverted.
Yeah.
So that means our method has to invert.
I agree, Rob. I agree. Preach,
You
brother.
know?
Preach.
So our method inverting is, I'm saying this, right? And part of it, it's everyone's fault. The state and local parties here have to start doing a better job of organizing around registering voters and vote by mail.
Yeah.
Here's the truth that I see.
Yeah.
I don't think we really know how to do it. I don't think we've ever tried it. We don't know how to do it. And if we don't know how to do it, we're uncomfortable doing it.
Yes.
And it feels like a waste of time.
Agreed.
Right? So we need to have somebody come in like a Pressler or someone from the national team and say, let's have an event where you
Pressler.
show us how to really do this.
Yeah.
Like really, really show us.
That's a good, because he crushed it for 24, didn't he, Pressler? I heard he registered some insane number of voters across the country.
And it's contagious, right?
Yeah.
It's contagious. People start seeing it happen and they want to be a part of it. Number 2 is voter outreach and motivational pieces of content. We can't
Bingo.
keep consistent. Right? We can't keep consistently having a bunch of tiny little groups
Yeah.
pitching their own pitch when it has to. The Democrats seem to have one giant group all pitching the same pitch. We have to focus on that.
Well, if there's not an opening for grassroots now, I don't know when there would be.
It's 100%.
I mean, for God's sakes, the Republicans of Illinois are effectively, this is the post-mortem for the party, if you ask me. I mean, who is going to, think about it from a business perspective, Rob. Would you invest in this product, in the product of the Illinois GOP? I mean,
at the current moment, I don't think I probably would.
I don't think I would either. I mean, I think, like Kathy Salvey seems to be a nice lady, but I mean, I don't see how she shouldn't step down. I mean, this is an unmitigated disaster.
Well, Paul, let me ask you this question, right? Because every business, every property, it has a pendulum. At some point, it was, brand new. So what would you say to the Illinois or any business to get where you're down right now? We're probably at the bottom, right? We're close to it if we're not there. How would you fix it to create and attract new investment?
I think it starts, a lot of the people that I talk to in the party, higher up, so to speak, they had told me that, you got to start from the bottom and then you replace the central committee and then, move your way up to the top of the pyramid. Well, I would suggest the exact opposite, because if you don't have somebody to lead you out of Egypt, then you're going to stay in Egypt and be slaves, right? You need somebody to get behind. And perhaps that's a gubernatorial candidate. Perhaps it's, a higher ranking office, perhaps it's a media personality. I don't know the answer to that question. What I would say is the first rule of the politics is you've got to oppose your enemy. And I use enemy because
your competitor.
Your competitor. Thank you. A little bit. You've got to actually oppose their policies, right?
Yeah.
The way that I see what the Republican Party in Illinois has become is that they've been afraid. The Democrats were masters at moving the Overton window to the left. And then with the woke ideology, they really, slammed it home by scaring the Republicans who didn't have political control or political power or political leverage even in Illinois. They scared them into submission. And then what you had was, you can run on this, but you have to moderate, because if we don't moderate, then, we'll be pariahs. And it's like, yeah, but the danger in that is you're going to lose your base. You're going to lose your supporters because you're not moderating. What you're really doing is you're acquiescing to your competitor and you're just going along with them. And I think there's this, perception that, well, we just got to shore up enough of these offices and then we'll make our move. It's like, no. In the meantime, you've got a party who supports boys and girls locker rooms, tampon machines in boys locker rooms or bathrooms, boys and girls sports, all these cultural things that are insane, cartoon pornography books in the kids section of the library. Like, while you are laying down with this strategy that you think will eventually come to fruition, you're losing your rights. You're losing your civil rights all across the state. So I think you've got to punch back harder, because the issue is we've moved far left. And if you want to get back to the center, you've got to stand up on principles and values and say no in order to drag them back. So that would be my
that would be your take.
My take.
Let me offer you a different perspective, a different thing of the coin, or a different view of the coin.
Sure.
I agree with you on it. It's a top down, right? If you're building a new franchise and you can get Magic Johnson,
bingo,
you get Magic Johnson, right? But what does Magic Johnson bring to the table? He brings work ethic, copycat behavior. Hey, I'm going to do the right thing. You're going to do the right thing. You're going to play hard. I'm going to play hard.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why I bring that up is because you get someone from the top down and you set an agenda and put everyone on notice. Hey, we're going to start with this issue and we are going to pound this issue until the other team submits to us.
Right.
And then we're going to take another issue we're going to pound that issue until the other team submits to us.
One at a time. You're
one at a time.
Right. No, I love what you're saying here. I totally agree with you. You got to narrow your focus is what you're saying, right, Rob?
Correct.
Yeah.
I feel like right now the Republicans have ADD.
I totally agree. And part of that is those factions that you talk about, right? We got a ton of little factions, right?
Millions.
I don't have to name them all or any of them in particular. I think we probably know a lot of the same ones. And that is a problem. But I think that contributes to what you're talking about, which the problem is we don't have a narrow focus in order to rally people around.
Right. And I think, and then you take, for example, you said we got to stand up and oppose harder. I would switch that a little bit. And I'd say we have to stand up and oppose smarter.
I agree. I don't know if I'm not talking about from a hard-headed perspective. I think.
No, I didn't think you were. I understood your first point.
Yeah, and I'm agreeing with you on the smarter thing. I think there needs to be this. I think there needs to be this Trumpian defiance for sure, and not just like opposing everybody, but to your point, narrow the focus a little bit and do not apologize for standing on that, principle. And, just don't acquiesce. Just don't be afraid to say what your position is, stand behind it, and don't vacillate. Like, I think Trump provided a model. I mean, the before Trump came along, it was the politician always said the right thing to the base, right? But also if they got caught as like, well, this, and then, you had your Hillary Clinton where she was anti-abortion and pro-abortion. Wherever the wind blew, these kind of politicians would say whatever it is at the time that needed to be said. Overton window shifting, exactly what I mentioned earlier. Trump said, no, this is what I think. And then when people come out with a gotcha, I don't care. This is my position. And that's all I'm saying is like, yeah, I'm with you on the narrow focus. I think we, in order to not get cornered, you have to lean in to an extent. Now, we're talking about, like the strategy is very nuanced. It gets, there's a lot to it, especially if we can gain a coalition. But I'm with you for the most part. You do agree though that we need a leader, and I just feel like we're lacking leadership in this party.
Well, yes, we are. When the days of the George Ryans were running this party had a stable group of people working it. DuPage was the crown jewel
Crown
of the
jewel.
Republican Party. Even at some point in the nation,
Mm-hmm.
it was considered that, but it wasn't. It was. I wouldn't say it was standoffish. It was firm. It was, hey, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. And if people don't like it, we're going to convince them that they're wrong, or we're going to convince them why we're right. And right now, I feel like we're mostly trying to convince people why they're wrong. And maybe we need to spend a little bit more time convincing people why we're right.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, there's a difference there. Like talking to your kids is one thing, and you're talking to a colleague on the same subject, you talk a little differently.
Right.
It seems like.
Know your audience.
So that's part of my, and then organization. And something that me and Terry, and I think you're well aware of and you're going to be a part of, is this Save Illinois Coalition.
Mm-hmm.
Is reaching out to other people, independents, left center Democrats who are really looking around going, I don't like these guys either, but I don't know who these other guys are.
Politically homeless. We want
politically homeless. We have to be an inviting place for the politically homeless to come and feel comfortable to vote with us.
Yeah.
And convince them while we're right.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, and to go back to that idea of like fighting back, I think the fighting back should be the populist message in Illinois, right? Because I think like,
yes.
And I've said this to a lot of people, like, look, if there's anywhere that should welcome a populist movement, it's Illinois. I mean, look at the economic, condition of Illinois, the pension issue, the high taxes. It used to be family values, Midwestern, friendly to business. It's the most unfriendly state to small business in the union by the numbers.
It has become that.
And, so from that perspective, it's like, hey, you want a welcoming message. How about we deregulate this? How about we Doge Illinois and make Illinois the most friendly place to do business? We need to do that, not just from like, hey, that's a good idea because it's nice to have businesses and jobs and whatever. But I mean, I don't know. Isn't the conventional view when you're so far in one direction, you need to, make radical change. So perhaps let's go the exact opposite direction. Deregulate as much as possible, cut taxes as much as possible, cut government as much as possible, because you're in quite a hole, Illinois.
Yeah. And I think the barrier to entry to gain those levers of control that you're referring to is the immigration issue. If we're going to follow Trump's lead,
don't tell me and Terry. We've been fighting that battle for over a year.
But this is the path that he laid out, because right now he's holding back $3 billion. Yeah. There's writing articles about him holding back other money for different schools. Mm-hmm. I say good. Starve them out. If they don't want to have, if they want their money, they've got to cooperate.
You got to start. So in Illinois, I mean, the work that Terry and I have done with the articles that I've written for the Gateway Pundit and the research.
I've read them. They're pretty good, by the way.
Yeah, Paul. Thank you. The things that we found, though, that the state of Illinois is doing to try to hide and protect illegal immigrants. I mean, Sean Casten, our radical District 6 congressman, I pointed out that he had endorsed one of our candidates. This is the same guy who wrote to the federal government, to FEMA, begging for $20 million for illegal aliens, to support illegal aliens in Chicago. What did that money go to? That money went to housing them, to putting them up in apartments so that ICE couldn't find them when Trump got into office, into, God knows what else, cell phones, food, clothes, all our money paying for, and our money from a federal tax perspective and state of Illinois. I mean, Pritzker's last budget, the biggest bump was human services. Why? Because that's the money they were using to pay for the illegals. So I'm with you.
And they've paid the money. So let's look at it from an accounting perspective. So why is this even important? One, they already paid it, so it's gone,
right? And
they haven't been reimbursed. So if they pay, if they spent $3 billion and they didn't get $3 billion back, we're negative $6 billion.
Right.
And
that people don't recognize that. That's a good point, Rob.
And who's going to pay for that ultimately, right?
The tax.
We are going to pay for that in summertime gas tax,
right?
In summertime grocery tax, in summertime hanging out in Chicago tax,
right?
Or anywhere in Illinois tax. So
what do you
That's
think?
a
And what do you think
financial
about
issue.
What do you think about these suburbs too? By the way, that
Which ones?
they're just the ones that are getting these radical Democrat. Everybody's going to be filled with Democrats on boards now, right? Well, in they passed the law in Illinois. I didn't realize this. I'm going to bring it up and read something to you
Well,
on the
while you're
mental
looking
health
that up, can I
act.
ask you a question?
Yeah, sure.
You mentioned to me earlier that Pritzker went out of his way this time to go and really acquire these township boards,
Yeah,
correct?
yeah,
The township boards are the ones that are collecting a lot of the tax revenues and then dishing it out to schools,
yeah,
right? Well, think of it this way. If you control the money and somebody's not paying their bills from the federal government, and you do it in one of the more wealthiest counties in America, that's how you're going to pay back
yeah.
the money
Yeah.
that you didn't get
Yeah.
from Trump.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, and I won't read this. I'll just tell you what it is about. There's this mental health, behavioral health, and developmental disabilities Community Mental Health Act that was passed, I don't know, last year maybe. And what it basically says is it gives any unit of government, municipal, county, township even, the ability to create another unit of government, which is a mental health board. So a township supervisor can decide, with obviously the support of his board, but she can create a mental health board, another unit of government. And I say it's another unit of government because the legislation actually says that it's advisory for tax levy purposes, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, I don't know, a couple of years ago, the DuPage County Board approved a $25 million mental health facility to be created. And to your point, like, I wonder, how
An immigration board.
So a
I mean,
a lot of those people are going
to how to spend.
Well, because Rob, check this out. Here, I will read something in here because it's fascinating to me. So they say that in the township of County, they can redefine mental illness. They can define it, redefine it within the law, mental illness or disabilities. This is applicable to schools, to these new facilities. So not only are they going to have tax levy authority, and it's essentially another unit of government, but they're going to be able to redefine the terms of the law however they want. So what does that mean? I mean, that means you could broaden that amount of money, that amount of tax levy authority you have then, right? Because you're expanding the base that you're trying to service. And that's, I think, your point, right? It was like, well, now they could increase taxes as much as they want.
And the people in DuPage, so to speak, are going to end up footing the bill for the city of Chicago.
Yep.
That's how it's, and all of this is going to come down to, because we're a sanctuary city or sanctuary state.
Yep.
And, one of our efforts is going to be try to eliminate that by putting it on as an advisory question on the ballot. Mm-hmm. We're calling it just vote on it. We need to just vote on a lot of these things that we're doing, and it needs to get on the ballot so that the people can vote on it straight up. Hey, should we have illegal immigrants here? Should we have, horses with 2 feet versus horses with 4 feet?
Yeah.
It should be voted on consistently, and hopefully our group can coalition a lot of these smaller groups into narrow focus, one thing at a time, and starting with immigration is going to be the beginning.
I think it's a great idea. I think it's an interesting idea. Certainly need a coalition in Illinois. I mean, at this point, we might as well try anything, right, Rob? Like we're about as low as we can get, I think.
Well, what's the worst could happen? We don't win one seat in a county town board.
Right.
It's already happening.
I mean, like I said, we've just witnessed the countification of DuPage, so it's going to be an uphill battle. But I will say, like, if there was, if you look at what the Biden administration was, I think, for a lot of the people who crossed over and elected Trump in 2024, it was
Yeah.
a wake up call, right? It was a wake up call because it's like, this is how bad it can be. And I think a lot of those crossover voters were like, oh, their eyes were open. So I think perhaps, you know, the Republicans probably deserved this. And to get some of these crossover voters or people to wake up, we're going to have to experience some of this Cook Countification in DuPage County.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
So, well, listen, Rob, I appreciate your time. Look forward to working with you on the Save Illinois Coalition. Anything you want to plug or mention, your Twitter handle?
Yeah, sure. I think we're going to be doing our kickoff event April 30th. It's
right.
$20, all you can eat food. It's not really designed to make money. It's designed to start bringing people together from different rounds, different backgrounds. We're going to have people from Chicago, DuPage, Southwest Cook, Kankakee, Kane, Kendall, McHenry. You name it. We already have a list of people a mile long who want to get involved because
I can't wait.
We're getting tired of losing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to having a drink or two with you. Talking about how we can fix this communist state we live in. So, hey, Rob, thanks for joining us, and look forward to talking to you soon. Yep. Take care.
See ya.
All right, everybody. Well, you know, could be worse, right? We could live in North Korea. Just kidding. It's definitely that bad. Not that bad, but I mean, if we don't stop this leftward movement, it's going to get ugly here in Illinois, and we're certainly going to feel it in the pocketbook. So, all right, look forward to seeing you next week. We'll have a good guest for you, and Terry will have a tan. Bye-bye.